Ravi drove along the quiet forest road with a calm smile on his face. The air smelled of pine trees and sunlight passed through tall branches falling softly on his car. He had been away for 3 weeks because of work in another city, and all he wanted now was peace. His wooden cabin waited for him near the edge of the forest, far from traffic and city noise. He liked it that way. As his car rolled to a stop in front of the cabin, he noticed something strange. The front gate was slightly open. He remembered locking it before leaving. He frowned and stepped out of the car. The air was cold and birds called from nearby trees. Everything seemed normal, but that open gate made him uneasy. Ravi checked his phone. The cabin had security cameras installed last year. They were connected to a cloud system and ran 24 hours a day. He had placed them after an incident when some kids tried to enter his property out of curiosity. He decided to review the footage later, but first he wanted to make sure everything was fine inside. He pushed the gate and entered. His cabin looked beautiful in the morning light, built with strong wood and a small stone path leading to the front door. Flowers surrounded the porch and the lake behind it reflected the bright sky, but then he saw another surprise. A silver car was parked in his driveway. Ravi stopped. He did not own that car. His eyes narrowed. He slowly walked toward the porch. The front door was closed, but when he turned the handle, it was unlocked. Someone had entered his house. His heart started to beat faster. He stepped back, pulled out his phone, and called the local sheriff's office. Before the call connected, a woman's voice shouted from inside the cabin. "Who are you? Why are you trying to break in?" Ravi froze. The door opened and a middle-aged woman stepped out. She wore a bright pink sweater and held her phone high as if recording. Her eyes were wide and her voice carried sharp energy. "I'm calling the police," she said loudly. "You're trespassing on private property." Ravi stared at her, shocked. "This is my cabin," he said firmly. "Who are you and why are you in my house?" She crossed her arms. "Don't lie. This cabin belongs to the community. I'm with the Homeowners Association. My name is Karen. You must be one of those squatters who think they can just move in." Ravi blinked, unable to believe what he was hearing. "I bought this property 3 years ago. It's fully registered in my name." "You're the one trespassing," Karen scoffed. "Don't make up stories. We keep track of every resident in this area, and your name is not on the list. The real owner hasn't been here for weeks, so we assumed the property was empty. I came to check because strange people were seen near the road yesterday." Ravi's patience was wearing thin. "I'm the real owner. You can check the county record. My name is Ravi Kumar. I can show you the papers." She shook her head, speaking louder as if trying to attract attention. "Nice try. I've already called the cops. You'll have to explain everything to them." Ravi took a deep breath. "Fine, let's wait for them. I have security cameras all around the cabin. They recorded everything, including you walking in." For the first time, Karen's confident face changed slightly. Her eyes flickered with doubt. "Cameras? What cameras?" Ravi pointed toward the corners of the porch and the roofline. "Those cameras. They're on 24/7 surveillance. I can access the recordings any time." Karen turned pale for a moment but quickly regained her voice. "That doesn't matter. You can't just appear out of nowhere and claim ownership. The police will decide." Ravi decided not to argue anymore. He walked to his car and waited near the gate. Within 10 minutes, a police vehicle arrived. 2 officers stepped out, one of them familiar to Ravi from before. "Morning, Mr. Kumar," Officer Miller greeted. "Didn't expect to see you today. Everything okay?" Ravi nodded toward the cabin. "Apparently not. That woman says this cabin is not mine." Miller raised an eyebrow and looked at Karen. "Ma'am, can you explain why you're in his house?" Karen crossed her arms again. "I'm the HOA representative. This man came here suddenly and tried to enter the cabin. We believed it was vacant." The second officer, a younger man named Davis, took out his notepad. "Vacant. Did you have permission from the owner to go inside?" Karen hesitated. "We manage the area. I was checking for safety." Officer Miller looked unimpressed. "Checking for safety means calling the owner first, not moving into someone's property." Ravi stepped forward. "I have my property documents in the glove compartment. And if you want, you can check my camera footage. It'll show her entering without permission." Karen's voice grew defensive. "I didn't move in. I was just cleaning up." "The place looked abandoned," Ravi replied calmly. "You parked in my driveway and unlocked my front door. That's not cleaning. That's trespassing." The officers exchanged a look. Miller finally said, "Mr. Kumar, please show your documents." Ravi handed them over. The papers were clear, signed, and sealed. Miller checked them carefully, then turned to Karen. "Everything looks valid. The property is his." Karen's mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Her confidence faded. She tried to explain again, but the officers stopped her. "Ma'am, you need to leave this property immediately," Miller said. "If the owner wishes, he can press charges for trespassing." Karen's eyes darted between them. "That won't be necessary," Ravi said politely. "I just want her gone." She grabbed her keys and walked quickly to her car. As she drove away, the silence returned to the forest. Ravi felt both relieved and angry. He had never imagined something like this would happen in his quiet place. After the police left, he unlocked his cabin and stepped inside. Everything looked the same except for a few changes. Some of his things had been moved. The living room table was cleaned and there were grocery bags near the counter. It seemed like Karen had actually started staying there. Ravi felt a chill run down his spine. He checked the cameras through his phone app. The footage showed her arriving 2 days earlier, carrying bags and walking inside confidently. She had even invited another woman once. They sat on his porch, drinking tea and talking like it was their own house. He sighed deeply. "Unbelievable," he whispered. That evening, he backed up all the video files and stored them safely. He also called a locksmith to change every lock in the cabin. The sun was setting behind the trees, painting the sky orange and gold. He sat on the porch watching the calm lake. The peace he had missed for weeks was slowly returning. But he knew one thing for sure now. Someone from the HOA had overstepped their limits, and he had a feeling this was not the end of it. Because as the night grew darker, his phone buzzed with a new message. It was from an unknown number. The message said, "You made a mistake reporting me. The HOA doesn't forget." Ravi stared at the screen quietly. The forest around him was silent, but the story had just begun. The morning after the strange message, Ravi woke up early. The air was cool and quiet, but his mind was not at peace. He sat on the porch with a cup of tea, staring at the trees and the calm lake beyond. The message from the unknown number kept playing in his head. "You made a mistake reporting me. The HOA doesn't forget." The words were short but filled with threat. Ravi was not a man who liked conflict. He had bought this cabin to stay away from problems and noise. The small community near the forest was peaceful when he first arrived. The houses were spread out and people mostly minded their own business. But since the Homeowners Association started new rules, things had become tense. He had heard stories from neighbors about the HOA being strict, but he never thought they would target him. After finishing his tea, Ravi decided to visit his nearest neighbor, a quiet man named Ramesh who lived about half a mile away. Ramesh had lived there for 10 years and knew almost everything about the people around. Ravi wanted to ask if he knew anything about Karen or the HOA's sudden interest in his cabin. When he reached Ramesh's house, he saw him watering plants near his porch. The older man smiled and waved. "Ravi, you're back. Heard about what happened yesterday." "The whole area is talking," Ravi sighed. "I didn't expect to become news this fast." "Did you know that woman from the HOA? Ramesh nodded slowly. "Yes, that's Karen. She's been the head of the HOA for about a year now. She likes to control everything. If someone doesn't follow her rules, she complains. If she doesn't get attention, she makes trouble. Some people call her the Forest Queen." Ravi frowned. "She entered my cabin and said she thought it was empty." "How could she think that? I have signs on the gate. I even pay the HOA fees every year." Ramesh gave a small laugh. "That doesn't stop her. She thinks she owns every house here. She even made trouble for the Sharma family last month because they painted their fence blue instead of brown. She called the cops for that too." Ravi shook his head. "This is madness. I have camera footage of her entering my cabin without permission. I already gave a copy to the police, but last night I got a message. Someone warned me that the HOA doesn't forget." Ramesh's smile faded. "That's serious. You should keep that message. Don't reply. If things get worse, show it to the police." Ravi nodded. "I plan to. I don't want any fight, but I also won't let anyone take what's mine." They talked for a while longer. Ramesh told him that several homeowners had problems with Karen, but no one dared to speak up. She had friends in the local town office and always used her connections to pressure people. Ravi thanked him and returned home with a clearer mind. He knew now that Karen was not acting alone. When he reached the cabin, he noticed something strange again. His mailbox was open and a folded paper was sticking out. He picked it up and read the letter. It was from the HOA. The paper looked official, printed with their logo. It said, "Dear resident, we have received reports of unusual activity at your property. The HOA management will be inspecting your premises this week to ensure compliance with community standards. Failure to cooperate may result in penalties or removal from the community. Sincerely, HOA Board." Ravi almost laughed. Removal from the community? For living in my own house? He placed the letter on the table and turned on his laptop. He decided to send an email to the HOA office. He wrote clearly that the inspection could happen only if he was present, and that any attempt to enter his property without permission would be considered trespassing. He attached copies of his ownership documents and the police report. After sending the email, he checked the security cameras again. Everything seemed normal until he saw movement in the footage from the night before. Around midnight, someone had walked near the back fence. The figure was wearing a dark hoodie and holding a flashlight. They had tried to open the gate but stopped when a sensor light turned on. Then they walked away quickly. Ravi saved the video. He was now sure that this was more than an HOA inspection. Someone was watching him. Later in the afternoon, a black SUV arrived near his gate. A man stepped out wearing a suit and sunglasses. He looked official and carried a folder. Ravi came outside to meet him. "Good afternoon," the man said politely. "My name is Rajesh Mehta. I'm from the HOA. We're here to discuss the inspection schedule." Ravi folded his arms. "I already sent an email. You can schedule the inspection, but only when I'm home." Rajesh smiled slightly. "Of course. But Mrs. Karen is concerned. She says you've made threats and refused to follow community rules." Ravi frowned. "That's not true. I haven't broken any rule. I just asked her to leave my property when she entered without permission." Rajesh looked uncomfortable. "Yes, I heard about that. She said it was a misunderstanding. She thought the property was empty. Does the HOA always enter homes they think are empty?" Ravi asked firmly. Rajesh didn't answer right away. He adjusted his tie and said, "We just want peace in the community. If you cooperate, I'm sure we can avoid problems." Ravi gave a calm smile. "I have no problem with peace. I just want privacy and respect. I have full surveillance around my cabin. Everything is recorded. If anyone tries to enter again, it will be reported." Rajesh nodded and returned to his SUV. As he drove away, Ravi noticed a small camera lens on the dashboard of the vehicle. It looked like they had recorded the entire conversation. That evening, Ravi walked around the cabin to check the fences and lights. He made sure every lock was strong and every camera was working. The forest was quiet again, but the calm felt different now. He could sense eyes watching from somewhere unseen. At night, he sat inside with his laptop open, reviewing the footage again. He saw the black SUV parked near the gate for some minutes before leaving. Then around midnight, he caught another figure walking close to the trees again. This time, the person placed something small near a bush. Ravi zoomed in on the footage and saw it was a black object, maybe a small device. He grabbed a flashlight and went outside. The forest was dark and crickets filled the silence. He walked to the same spot shown on the camera and looked around the bush. He found a small black tracker blinking with a red light. Someone had planted it near his cabin. He picked it up carefully and turned it off. His heartbeat quickened. This was no longer about an argument with the HOA. Someone was spying on him. He went back inside and placed the tracker on the table. Then he called Officer Miller, explaining what he had found. Miller promised to come the next morning to collect it. Before going to bed, Ravi wrote everything down in his notebook. The message, the letter, the visit, and now the tracker. He didn't want to forget any detail. He looked out the window one last time. The moonlight touched the lake and the water shimmered softly. But behind that beauty, he felt danger growing slowly, like a shadow waiting for its chance. He whispered to himself, "If they want to fight, I'll be ready." The cabin light stayed on through most of the night as Ravi sat near the window, watching and waiting, unaware that more surprises were already on their way. The next morning, Ravi waited outside his cabin for the police. The forest was bright and quiet, and sunlight spread over the lake like a golden sheet. He tried to stay calm, but the thought of the tracker still bothered him. He kept replaying the camera footage in his head. Someone had placed that device there after dark. It was no longer a mistake or coincidence. Someone wanted to spy on him. A police car arrived around 9. Officer Miller stepped out with another officer, and greeted Ravi with a friendly nod. "Morning, Mr. Kumar. You said you found something unusual near your cabin." Ravi handed him the small black tracker. "Yes, I saw it on my camera footage last night. It was hidden behind the bush near the fence." Miller turned the device around in his hand and looked at it carefully. "This looks like a GPS tracker. We'll send it to the lab and see if we can find fingerprints or a signal record. You did the right thing calling us." "Do you think it's connected to the HOA?" Ravi asked. Miller frowned. "Hard to say. But placing a tracker is a serious act. If it's from them, they're crossing a line." The officer asked a few more questions, took pictures of the location, and promised to call when the results came. After they left, Ravi felt slightly better knowing the police were involved. Still, he could not relax. He turned on his laptop to review the rest of the footage. As he went through the recordings, he noticed something else. On the same night, about an hour before the tracker appeared, another person had come near the gate. This one didn't go inside but left a small envelope in his mailbox. Ravi had not checked his mail since morning. He rushed to the mailbox and found a plain white envelope without any name. Inside was a single piece of paper with a short message written in neat handwriting. It said, "Stop reporting us or you'll regret it." Ravi stood still, reading the note again. It was not from a random stranger. It was clearly meant for him. He went back inside, locked the door, and placed the note next to the tracker on the table. He knew it was time to get help from someone outside the local community. He called his friend Arjun, who worked as a private investigator in the nearby town. Ravi explained everything from the start. Arjun listened carefully and promised to visit that evening. When Arjun arrived, he looked around the cabin with sharp eyes. He was calm but serious. "You did well installing those cameras," he said. "These recordings are valuable. Whoever planted that tracker didn't expect you to have such detailed surveillance." Ravi nodded. "I just wanted safety. I never thought it would come to this." Arjun connected his own small scanner to check if there were any more hidden devices. He walked through each room slowly, scanning corners, lights, and even the smoke detector. When he finished, he looked at Ravi. "There's another signal coming from the living room wall." They moved the couch aside, and behind it, near the power socket, Arjun found another small device, thinner than the first one. It looked like a listening microphone. Ravi felt his chest tighten. "Someone has been listening too?" "Seems like it," Arjun said quietly. "This is not just a random act. Someone is trying to collect information, maybe to intimidate you, maybe to set you up for something. We need to find out who's behind this." They spent the next 2 hours checking the rest of the cabin and the yard. By afternoon, they found one more device, this one hidden under the porch railing. Arjun placed them all in a small plastic box. "This is now evidence," he said. "Keep them safe until we give everything to the police. But before that, we should confirm who's watching you." Ravi showed him the camera footage from the night before, including the SUV visit from the HOA man named Rajesh. Arjun watched it carefully, pausing and zooming in on faces and license plates. "This SUV belongs to the HOA. That logo on the side mirror confirms it. But the person placing the tracker was not him. The figure is smaller, maybe a woman." Ravi's eyes widened. "You think it was Karen?" Arjun nodded slowly. "Possible. Her behavior fits the pattern. She lost control when the police sided with you. She might be trying to collect information to use against you later, but we'll need proof." That evening, Arjun connected the surveillance system to his own monitoring device. It could alert them immediately if anyone entered the property. He also added a few small hidden cameras of his own, just to be sure. As night came, Ravi felt both nervous and alert. The wind moved through the trees and the sound of leaves filled the silence. They sat together in the living room, the screens glowing softly in front of them. Hours passed quietly until Arjun's device beeped once. He leaned forward. Movement near the gate. On the main screen, they saw a shadow. Someone was walking slowly toward the cabin again. The person stopped near the mailbox, looked around, and took out a phone. Then the face turned toward the camera, and both men saw it clearly. It was Karen. She was holding a flashlight and wearing a jacket. She opened the mailbox and seemed to place another paper inside. Then she walked toward the side fence and looked around for a few seconds before leaving. Ravi's jaw tightened. "That's her. She's not afraid of being caught." Arjun nodded. "Now we have clear evidence. Tomorrow we'll go to the police station and show everything." They waited until morning. The forest looked peaceful again, but the tension still hung in the air. When Ravi opened the mailbox, he found another letter. This one was bolder than before. It said, "Last warning. The HOA knows everything about you. Stop talking to the police." Ravi handed it to Arjun. "She's trying to scare me." Arjun studied the paper carefully. "She's trying to hide something bigger. Nobody goes this far just to win a small argument. There must be something inside the HOA that she doesn't want anyone to find." Later that day, they went to the police station and met Officer Miller again. They showed him the tracker, the listening devices, and the new footage. Miller watched everything with a serious face. "This is bad," he said finally. "If the HOA is involved, they're breaking several laws. We'll start an official investigation. I'll also get a warrant to check their office records." Ravi felt a small relief, but he knew the fight was not over. That evening, he and Arjun returned to the cabin. The sunset covered the sky in orange light and the forest seemed calm again. Ravi made dinner for both of them, and for the first time in days he managed to smile a little. But late at night, as they sat near the porch, they heard the sound of a vehicle stopping near the gate. The headlights flashed once and then went off. Arjun whispered, "Stay inside. I'll check." He moved quietly to the side of the cabin and looked through the trees. A black SUV was parked near the road. Someone stepped out and placed a package on the ground near the gate before driving away. Ravi waited until Arjun signaled that it was safe, then they both walked to the gate. The package was wrapped in brown paper with no name. When they opened it, there was a small file folder inside. It contained photographs, pictures of Ravi entering and leaving his cabin, sitting on the porch, even buying groceries in town. Every photo was time-stamped. Ravi stared at them in disbelief. "They've been watching me for weeks." Arjun nodded slowly. "They're trying to collect something to use against you. Maybe to claim you're doing something wrong or to drive you out." Ravi clenched his fists. "Then they've chosen the wrong person." "I'm not leaving my home." Arjun gave him a steady look. "Then we'll fight back, but smartly. Let's gather every piece of proof. Once the police get involved, they'll have no place to hide." As the two men went back inside, the wind blew through the forest again. The cabin stood strong under the moonlight, surrounded by silence but filled with quiet determination. Ravi looked at the lake outside and whispered to himself, "This time I'll protect what's mine." The night passed slowly, and though the world outside was calm, Ravi knew that the real storm was just beginning. The sun rose slowly over the forest, covering the cabin with soft light. Ravi stood on the porch with tired eyes. He had barely slept after finding the package filled with photos of him. The idea that people from the HOA were secretly watching him filled him with both anger and fear. But now he was no longer alone. Arjun had promised to stay until everything was resolved. Inside the cabin, Arjun set up his laptop on the table. "I've checked the photos," he said. "They were printed recently. The camera angle suggests they were taken from the forest side, maybe from one of those tall trees near the road." Ravi nodded slowly. "That means someone was hiding there for days." "Yes," Arjun said. "And judging by the timestamps, they've been spying even before you returned home. This wasn't random. They were planning something long before you arrived." Ravi walked to the window and looked out at the calm lake. "But why? What could they possibly gain by scaring me?" Arjun replied, "I think it's about land and control. If they make you leave, they can claim your property as abandoned. The HOA can then sell it to someone else. It's an old trick used by corrupt management groups." Ravi turned to face him. "You mean Karen and her people were trying to take my cabin?" Arjun nodded. "That's my guess. They thought you'd be away longer, so they moved in early. When you returned, they panicked." Ravi clenched his fists. "Then we'll show them their mistake." Arjun smiled slightly. "That's the plan. But we'll need to be smart. Let's set a trap." They worked through the morning preparing their setup. Arjun positioned a few new cameras hidden among plants and trees. He placed motion sensors near the gate and installed a small microphone on the porch. "If they come again, we'll get clear sound and video," he said. Around noon, Officer Miller called. "We checked the tracker," he said over the phone. It was active for several days and connected to a phone number registered under the HOA's office. "We're preparing a warrant for a search." Ravi thanked him and shared the new information about the photos. Miller promised to send a patrol car that evening to watch the area from a distance. By late afternoon, everything was ready. The forest looked peaceful as always, but Ravi and Arjun were alert. They decided to act as if they had left for town, so they drove out of the area for a few hours, parked behind a hill, and returned quietly on foot once it got dark. The lights in the cabin were off, but the cameras were recording. They waited inside silently, watching the live feed on Arjun's laptop. The night air was cool and the only sound was the whisper of wind through the trees. Hours passed with no movement. Then, close to midnight, they saw a shadow appear near the gate. Someone was walking toward the cabin. The person stopped near the mailbox again, looked around, and then waved to someone behind them. 2 more figures appeared. Ravi recognized one of them immediately. It was Karen. The other 2 were men from the HOA, people he had seen during past meetings. Arjun whispered, "They think you're not here." On the screen, they saw Karen pull out a key from her pocket and hand it to one of the men. He unlocked the gate quietly and they all walked in. "They still have a copy of my old key," Ravi said softly. Arjun replied, "Good thing we changed the locks. Let's see what they do now." The 3 people reached the front door and tried to open it, but it didn't work. They looked at each other, whispering. Then Karen pointed toward a window. One of the men used a small tool to try to lift it. The sound of metal scraping echoed faintly through the night. Arjun recorded everything on his second camera and whispered, "We've got them." Karen finally spoke loudly enough for the porch microphone to catch her voice. "Just get the door open. Once we're inside, we'll take pictures to prove he's violating HOA codes. Then we'll report him to the board." Ravi shook his head in disbelief. "She's pretending it's an inspection." The window finally moved open and one of the men climbed inside. Within seconds, the others followed. Arjun whispered, "Now." He pressed a button on his phone that turned on all the porch lights and triggered a loud recorded message. A calm voice said, "Attention. You are being recorded. This property is under full surveillance. The police have been notified." The reaction outside was instant. Karen screamed in shock and the 2 men ran toward the door. Before they could escape, flashing lights appeared on the road. Officer Miller's patrol car had just arrived. Ravi and Arjun stepped outside as the officers caught the trespassers near the gate. Karen tried to talk her way out. "This is a misunderstanding. We were just checking for safety issues." Miller's face was firm. "At midnight? With lock-picking tools? And after we told you to stay off his property?" Karen's face turned pale. The officers took all 3 into custody. Ravi handed Miller the camera footage as proof. They broke in again. "Everything is recorded with sound and timestamps." Miller nodded. "This will make the case solid. Thank you for staying calm." After the police left with the intruders, Ravi and Arjun went back inside. The tension began to ease. Arjun smiled slightly. "That should settle it. Once the court sees the footage, they won't be able to lie." Ravi sat down and finally let out a deep breath. "I never thought living in peace could turn into something like this." The next few days passed quietly. News spread quickly through the community. Everyone now knew about Karen's arrest and the illegal actions of the HOA team. Some neighbors even came to apologize for not warning Ravi earlier. Ramesh visited one evening carrying a basket of fruits. "I heard what happened," he said. "You handled it well. People have been scared of that woman for too long. Now everyone knows the truth." Ravi smiled. "I just wanted to protect what's mine." By the end of the week, the police finished their investigation. The tracker, the letters, the listening devices, and the break-in footage were all connected to the HOA's office. Karen had been using HOA funds to spy on homeowners she didn't like. When the final report came, Officer Miller personally delivered it. "You were right from the start," he said. "We also found files in their office with your name. They planned to mark your property as abandoned so they could sell it to a developer. It was a scheme. But now it's over. She and her team are facing charges." Ravi thanked him and looked around his peaceful cabin. The air smelled of rain, and the sound of birds filled the morning. Arjun was leaving that day, but he looked pleased. "Your camera saved you," he said. "You turned their plan into proof." Ravi nodded. "I'm glad I trusted my instinct." After Arjun left, Ravi walked to the lake and sat by the water. The reflection of the trees moved gently on the surface. He felt peace returning again, but this time it was deeper, stronger. He knew he had faced something dark and come out stronger. That night, as he watched the sunset turn the sky orange, he checked his cameras one last time. The screens were clear, showing nothing but calm forest and soft wind. He smiled and whispered to himself, "Finally, home feels safe again." But just before he turned off the monitor, a small movement appeared near the road. A dark car parked far away and someone stepped out, looking toward his cabin before driving off. Ravi watched quietly. He didn't feel fear this time. He simply said, "Whoever you are, I'm ready now." The cabin lights glowed warmly as the forest settled into night. The danger had passed, but the story was not completely over. The next morning, Rohan woke up before sunrise. The sound of birds filled the quiet air around the cabin. The storm from last night had passed, leaving behind a soft breeze and the smell of wet pine trees. He made himself some tea and sat on the porch waiting for the sun to rise. His mind was calm but alert. He knew this day would bring answers and changes. Just as the light touched the edge of the forest, a police car drove up the narrow road. Behind it, another car followed, the one belonging to the HOA president, Mr. Blake. Karen's car came last, and she stepped out with her arms crossed, looking nervous but still proud. Rohan stood up slowly and walked down the steps to greet them. "Morning, officers," he said in a calm tone. The officer who had come the night before stepped forward. "Morning, sir. We're here to review the security footage like we discussed." Rohan nodded. "Everything is ready inside. You'll see what really happened." Mr. Blake and Karen followed them into the cabin. The moment they stepped in, the quiet whirring sound of the surveillance system filled the room. The monitors were already playing recordings from the night before, and even earlier ones. Rohan picked up the remote and selected the clip where Karen first entered his property without permission. The screen showed her sneaking through the yard, taking pictures, and then calling someone on her phone. The officer looked serious. "That's trespassing." Karen's face turned pale. "I wasn't trespassing," she said quickly. "I was only making sure the property followed community rules." Mr. Blake frowned. "Karen, that's not your responsibility. You should have reported to the board, not gone into someone's property." Rohan stayed quiet and played the next video. It showed Karen meeting two men near the fence. They were carrying boxes and small tools. The video showed them trying to open the back door. Karen was standing close, whispering something. The officer paused the video. "These two men, and do you know who they are?" Karen's voice trembled. "They said they were from maintenance. I thought they were supposed to check something." Rohan finally spoke. "They weren't from maintenance. They were trying to break in. I called the police when I saw them on my cameras. That's why you came last night." Everyone went silent. The only sound in the room was the soft clicking from the cameras. Mr. Blake turned to Karen. "This is serious. You have been accusing him, but the truth is very different." Karen's pride started to crumble. She looked down, her face red with embarrassment. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I just thought he wasn't supposed to be here." Rohan nodded slowly. "You never asked. You assumed. This cabin was built by my grandfather. I grew up here. I just came back after many years away. I didn't want to cause trouble." The officer turned off the recording and took notes. "We'll file a report. You're not in any trouble, sir, but the HOA may need to handle this issue internally." After the police left, Mr. Blake stayed behind. He looked tired but relieved. "Rohan, I'm sorry for how you've been treated. I'll make sure this is corrected. Karen will not be bothering you again." Rohan gave a small nod. "Thank you. I only wanted peace here. I didn't come to fight anyone." Mr. Blake left soon after, leaving Karen alone in the living room. She looked uncomfortable, as if she wanted to speak but didn't know how. Rohan turned toward her. "You can say what you want. I'm listening." Karen took a deep breath. "I thought you were like those people who move in without following the rules. I've been part of this neighborhood for 10 years and I thought I was protecting it. But I went too far." Rohan's expression softened. "Fear makes people do strange things. But you should remember that respect works better than control." Karen nodded slowly. "You're right. I'll leave you alone from now on." She turned to go, but before she stepped outside, she said, "You take care, Rohan. This place is beautiful. Maybe I just needed to see it that way." When she left, the air inside the cabin felt lighter. The tension that had been building for days was finally gone. Rohan spent the rest of the day repairing a few things around the cabin. The fence that had been broken, the door frame that was scratched. As he worked, he thought about how quickly people could judge others, but he also knew that truth always came out when you stayed calm and patient. Later that evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, he received a call from Mr. Blake. "I wanted you to know," Mr. Blake said. "The board voted to remove Karen from her position. We also decided to review our HOA policies. We'll be making changes so no one can misuse power again." Rohan thanked him. "That's good news. I hope it helps everyone." After hanging up, he walked outside with a cup of tea. The porch light flickered gently and the forest glowed orange in the fading sunlight. For the first time since moving back, he felt peace. Over the next few weeks, neighbors started greeting him warmly. Some even stopped by to see the cabin and share stories about the area. Rohan welcomed them all. Slowly, the place that once felt tense began to feel like home again. One day, while checking his camera system, Rohan noticed something on the screen. A small note had been left at the edge of his porch. He stepped outside and picked it up. The note was from Karen. It said, "I wanted to say thank you. I learned something from you. Sometimes peace is stronger than pride." Rohan smiled faintly and placed the note inside his cabin beside a picture of his grandfather. He looked around and felt that the old cabin had finally regained its spirit. From that day on, he continued living quietly, tending to the garden, repairing the cabin, and enjoying the life his grandfather once loved. He kept the cameras on, not out of fear, but as a reminder that truth always watches, and honesty protects more than any rule ever could. And though he never spoke of it much, people in the community began to tell the story of the man in the cabin who stayed calm when accused and let truth speak for him. It became a quiet lesson for everyone around the lake. The cabin stood strong and peaceful, surrounded by tall pines and open skies, a place of calm after the storm. Rohan had found his peace again, not through anger, but through patience and truth. And in that silence, he finally felt at home.